MMSC receiver that equalizes the multipath channel. Okay, but then there was some issue related to the bias introduced by the receiver. Okay, let's see what it is. Okay, it's a minor effect, but it's important to understand what it is and compensate for it. Okay, let's recall that Y of L was written as channel H of L, A of L modulation plus N of L. Okay, and A of K and A of L are the DFT pairs, and some channel H of K and H of L are the DFT pairs. Okay, and you have to understand that L ranges from 0, 1 up till M minus 1. So this H of K corresponds to not the original channel, wideband channel, but the channel as perceived by the receiver in these M subcarriers. So it is a sort of a band limited channel limited to M subcarriers. Okay, it's not the total channel that we talked about in the very beginning. Okay, right. So we went through the derivation for the MMSC receiver, and we showed that to be W of L, the expression for the MMSC filter, is equal to H conjugate of L divided by sigma A square H of L whole square plus sigma N square. Was that right? Or anything else? And there is a sigma A square here. Is that right? And we had an expression for the mean square error, that is 1 over M and that was, can you recall that, what it was? Sigma N square divided by H of L divided by sigma A square. Or you can move this here and you put a sigma A square there. Okay, either way is fine. And the signal to noise ratio at the output of the MMSC receiver was defined to be, okay, before we define the signal to noise ratio, let's look at the structure of the time domain signal after applying the DFT. Recall that we applied a filter W of L on Y of L to get Z of L, right? It's a filtered signal, is that right? Okay, and in time domain we had written this as Z of K, that is equal to the intended modulation signal A of K plus some error signal E of K. Pardon me for the abuse of notation, here we put it in bracket, but here we put it as subscript. But it's understood that they are a function of discrete time index K. K ranges from 0, 1 up till M minus 1. Okay, so after applying IDFT on Z of L, we get Z of K, which is basically trying to recover the original signal plus some additional error signal. And we have computed the mean square error for this error signal E of K. Therefore, the signal to noise ratio at the output of the MMSC receiver can be defined as signal power, which is the variance of AK divided by mean square error. Okay, and you can already see that if I take the sigma A square here, it comes to the numerator and it comes out and it cancels the sigma A square. Therefore, we end up with 1 over summation 1 over M L equal to 0 to M minus 1 sigma M square divided by sigma A square H of L absolute value square plus sigma N square. That is the signal to noise ratio at the output of MMSC receiver. Okay, let us say that h of L is not a function of L, it's a constant. Just to see whether this notion of signal to noise ratio makes any sense at all, let us say h of L is some constant h naught. Just hypothetically. That means there is no channel selectivity. The channel is constant for that allocation of subcarriers 0 to m minus 1. Okay, if at all h of L is independent of L, let's say some h naught, then I can write this as, in the special case, SNR at the output of the MMSE LE, it becomes, well, this becomes a constant. Therefore, the summation disappears, the factor m disappears, and then we end up with sigma a square h naught absolute value square plus sigma m square divided by sigma n square. And that can be written as sigma a square divided by sigma n square h naught absolute value square plus 1. Okay. But we very well know that if the channel has no selectivity or whatsoever, the system model would be yk equal to, or rather yk would be h naught ak plus nk. And what is SNR for this? For an optimum receiver, if I do match filtering on h naught, it would be sigma a square h naught absolute value square divided by sigma n square. This is what is called the match filter bound for this channel. Well, of course, in this case it's a no SI channel, it's easy to. So this turns out to be the optimum match filter bound plus 1. So the MMSE equalizer is giving you an SNR higher than the optimum receiver that you can possibly develop. So there is something not right here. Okay? Of course, when this quantity is very large, SNR is very large, adding a 1 doesn't necessarily change things a whole lot. If its SNR is 100, if you call it 101, that's okay, right? It's close enough. But in low SNR region, this one makes a difference. So why is that we have this slight additional increase in SNR, apparent increase in the SNR? This is not a real increase in the SNR, it's just an apparent increase in the SNR. That's because we defined signal to noise ratio in this particular manner. It's a defined quantity. Signal power square by mean square error. So we'll fix this in a moment and see how to, two things we have to do. Why we have to figure out why there is an increase in the SNR, and then how should we modify the MMSE receiver so that we end up with something like this without the additional 1 there. Okay, so now we will show that MMSE receiver introduces bias. Okay, and if you remove this bias at this point, so I will multiply this with a factor alpha that is equal to 1 over 1 minus MSE. I think I was wrong last time. I called it 1 minus MSE. It's actually 1 over 1 minus MSE. If I do the scaling at this point, then we can show that the signal to noise ratio at the output of the MMSE receiver, unbiased, UP denotes unbiased, is equal to SNR at the output of the MMSE receiver, which is biased, minus 1. That is the relationship between these two. So you can already see that SNR of MMSE unbiased is equal to this quantity, because I'm going to remove 1 here, then which is the desired result. Of course, this is more general. It works for any channel, not for the constant channel. The constant channel is used as an illustrative example. However, this holds for an arbitrary ISI channel. Okay, let's see how we can obtain this result. Yeah.
How do we compare these two?
We'll work it out the details. You'll see that these are all defined quantities, right? The signal noise ratios are defined quantities. here we know that this is the optimum. Okay, it's kind of easy to visualize. Okay, so if you get anything higher than this, something is not right. Okay, that means this definition itself is at fault. Okay, that means this term contains something proportional to the desired signal which we have not captured. That's what it indicates. This is not totally additive white Gaussian noise. It's only an error signal, and the error may contain some useful component about the desired signal. If I can extract that out, I can increase the SNR. Or rather, I can decrease the SNR if it is a negative quantity. Okay? So the fault is with this EK. EK is not additive white Gaussian noise. If it were additive white Gaussian noise, then everything is fine. But it is just an error signal which contains both additive filtered additive white Gaussian noise and a term proportional to the desired signal. we'll see that in a moment. Okay. So the fault lies with the definition of this SNR. Okay. We will show that what bias is. Okay. We'll show what the bias is. It's not a big deal. You can implement MMS receiver as it is, and it works fine. But you'll see a degradation for certain constellations which have an amplitude variation like 16 QAM and 64 QAM. For QPSK and BPSK, this bias is not a problem. Basically, it's going to be scaling of the signal at this point. If you miss a scalar here, if your decision device is plus, if you compare with this GK with 0, greater than 0 or less than 0, a positive scaling here does not change your decisions. But if you have 16 QAM, then your decision boundaries are different, right? Then a positive scaling here would make a difference. So you will see a slight degradation in the error rate. But at very high SNR, as we already showed, and this quantity is as good, is very close to. So at high SNRs it won't make a difference. At low SNR it makes a difference. Let's go through it more carefully. This effect of the bias. Okay, so what is this bias? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the filtered signal Z of L. I'm going to substitute for W of L, the MMSE expression we got, and we're going to expand the terms and then look at really what's happening there. Okay? Yesterday I already said that if you had a zero forcing solution, then the MMSE filter will simply invert the original channel and you will recover your constellation back, and there will be additive white Gaussian noise which is filtered, and there is no issue of bias. But this bias only comes into picture for the MMSE receiver. Okay, let's see what it is. Z of L is W of L. Let's see what W of L. It is H conjugate of L sigma A square divided by sigma A square H of L absolute value square plus sigma M square. This is the filter, right? And this is multiplied with H of L, A of L plus N of L. Okay, we done this yesterday, and we'll rewrite this as sigma A square H conjugate of L. We'll move this H of L here, H of L. Then we add plus sigma M square minus sigma N square. The whole thing will have A of L multiplying it divided by sigma A square HL square plus sigma N square plus N of L multiplied with W of L. I won't expand W of L anymore. It is just filtered noise. Okay? This can be written as, take the first part, which is exactly same as this, that becomes A of L, and then we have minus sigma N square A of L divided by this expression right here. Okay. Now you can see that this is what this combined term is called E of L, right? Originally we called because we defined Z of L as A of L plus some error term. Okay, but we can already see that the error term contains something proportional, something related to the desired signal, right? So what we need to do is, let me erase it here. Okay, this is Z of L. I can write this whole thing in time domain. I take the IDFT and I can see the structure of the signal at this point, right? Because that's what we are interested in. So I can write this as Z of K, that is equal to A of K, which is the IDFT of this quantity, and then I have A of L multiplied with some filter, right? Whatever, an arbitrary filter. Okay, that can be written as minus A of K circularly convolved with some filter response Q bar of K. Okay, what is Q bar of K? Q bar of K is DFT pairs with sigma n square divided by sigma a square H of L is that right? Plus some filtered noise term n bar of K. Is that okay? Okay. If you look at this, A of K convolved with some response, and you can see that this Q bar of K is symmetric with K, right? Q bar of K will have coefficients Q bar 0, Q bar 1, Q bar minus 1, which are symmetric in nature. Maybe there is a conjugate sign, right? Because, right, this is, why is that? Does it make sense? Okay. So now, this can be written as Q0 multiplied by AK plus some unwanted ISI terms on either side, right? If you expand this convolution, what do you get? ZK is equal to AK plus Q0 bar multiplied by AK, or rather it's a negative sign here, minus, I'll write this as Q bar M AK minus M is not equal to 0, right? It takes every other M. Function of M not equal to 0. So what is this? It is the ISI caused by this, whatever this filter, whatever it is, right? An arbitrary filter, and plus N bar K, which is filtered additive white Gaussian noise. Now I can take this 1 minus q bar hat into ak plus I will call this whole thing e prime k. Can I do that? This whole thing is called e prime k. Some unwanted term. The good thing is that e prime k has nothing to do with the current symbol ak. It's a function of future symbols and past symbols, but the current symbol ak does not appear in e prime k. So this is independent of ak, the current symbol ak, because the current symbol has been extracted out. Okay, now what is q0 bar? Can you tell me from this expression? This is the DFT pair. If I want q0 bar, how would I get that? Well, here is the DFT. If I want the zeroth lag, summation over L equal to 0 to m minus 1, 1 over m, that function, right? Do you agree? What is qk? Qk is this function, e to the power minus j 2 pi k, and then you put k equal to 0, you get sigma m square divided by sigma a square h of l whole square plus sigma m square. And that is something familiar to you. What is it? That is MSc, right? No, that's not MSc, but there is MSc hat, right? That is equal to okay. Well, there is AK that came out. Okay, that is MSc times divided by. Is it divided? Okay, fine. Fine. Okay. Now I need to find out the SNR at the output of this new receiver, where I can simply scale my decision regions with 1 minus q naught bar. So this is okay. I will not call it MSc because there is some sigma a square there. If I don't scale it, it is still fine as long as you view it as some channel, and then proceed with the next stage, demodulation. You don't have to scale it, but you can scale it if you wish. Okay. Now the signal to noise ratio should be defined as 1 minus q naught bar. The signal to noise ratio should be defined as MMSE unbiased should be 1 minus q naught bar whole square sigma a square divided by expected value of ek prime whole square. Do you agree? Now the good thing is ek prime is independent of ak, the current symbol. It only contains the past and future symbols. Okay, so let's find out what is the expected value of ek prime whole square. Okay. Okay. So I'll rewrite this as this equation minus ek prime is equal to, I'm going to take this side, 1 minus q naught bar ak minus zk. Okay? And this can be written as ak minus zk minus q naught bar multiplied by ak. And ak minus zk is already defined as, where is that? At this point, zk is equal to ak plus some error signal ek. That was something we started with, right? So ak minus zk is minus ek. Okay? This is equal to minus ek minus q naught bar ak. Okay? So let me write it somewhere here. Let's rewrite this. Minus ek prime is equal to minus ek minus q naught bar ak. Of course, you can take the minus out from everywhere, right? This can be rearranged as ek is equal to ek prime minus q naught bar ak. Okay? We're just going roundabout here and there. But now we are ready to take the expectation on both sides. Expected value of ek, we'll take the variance on both sides. That is equal to expected value of ek prime absolute value square plus q naught bar square sigma a square, and the cross terms expected value of ek prime multiplied with q naught bar ak, maybe you can put a conjugate on both, it goes to 0 because ek prime does not contain ak. We made sure that, right? Should be in brackets, this should be in brackets, this should be in brackets. So this goes to 0. So this is what we end up with. Okay? And we already called this quantity mean square error, MSE, right? Okay? That is defined as MSE. So therefore, I'll write it here. Expected value of ek prime whole square is MSE, that is equal to expected value of ek prime whole square plus q naught square divided by sigma square. Where was it? We erased it. What is this quantity? This is nothing but mean square error square. This is nothing but mean square error. No, not square, but anyway, let's keep it like q naught bar square sigma A square. So this quantity is equal to 1 minus Q naught bar square sigma A square. The whole thing, well, there's no space here, we have to write it somewhere else. Okay, let's rewrite. SNR at the output of MMSE unbiased is equal to 1 minus Q naught bar whole square sigma A square divided by expected value of EK prime square. And we have an expression for this from here, right? And that is equal to 1 minus Q naught bar whole square sigma A square divided by mean square error minus Q naught bar square sigma A square. Now mean square error should be expressed in terms of Q naught bar. Okay? Q naught bar, what was it written as? MSE sigma A square. And MSE is equal to sigma A square into Q naught bar. Okay? 1 minus Q naught bar square sigma A square divided by MSE is equal to Q naught bar into sigma A square minus Q naught bar square sigma A square. And we take sigma A square multiplied by Q naught bar out. So we take sigma A square multiplied by Q naught bar out. That gives us 1 minus Q naught bar. And this cancels one term and this cancels one term and we get 1 minus Q naught bar by Q naught bar. Okay? So SNR at the output of the MMSE unbiased is equal to 1 over Q naught bar minus 1. What is 1 over Q naught bar? Somewhere here. What is SNR at the output of a linear equalizer? Should be, you remember that? What is Q naught bar? 1 over, well, that is the whole thing, right? Summation 1 over m L equal to 0 to m minus 1 sigma n square divided by sigma a square h of L absolute value square plus sigma a square minus 1, and that is equal to SNR at the output of the MMSE minus 1, because this term is exactly equal to SNR at the output of MMSE. It's a bit of a lengthy derivation. So what really happened? Basically, we have to extract this term out. 1 minus Q naught bar is out. And Q naught bar is something related to MSE. If sigma a square is 1, Q naught bar is nothing but the MSE. And you know that MSE goes to 0 at high SNR, and this term is close to 1 at high SNR, but at low SNR it is not. Right? So if you want to demodulate 16 QAM or 64 QAM, instead of this point being 1, it may be 0.7 or 0.8. And you can't ignore that, right? You have to take that, whatever, that is a new channel, and you have to divide the whole receiver by that number so that the channel gain is unity. And now we can go through the slicing, the 64 QAM decision rules. or 16 convolution rules. If you don't do that, you see a degradation in performance. You can simulate and see it if you wish. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Now, what is the suboptimality of this receiver? Everything looks fine now. Is there a suboptimality in this receiver? Well, yes, this is a linear receiver, and unless the channel frequency selectivity is very mild, small variations, if there are a lot of selectivity in the channel, you lose some performance. Why is that? It is essentially trying to, in the limiting case where thermal noise variance goes to 0, invert the channel response. When you invert the channel response, you get original constellation back, but the noise is also enhanced, especially when the channel response has zeros in the response. When the denominator goes to 0, noise power increases for certain subcases. So there is a noise power increase. Therefore, it is a suboptimal receiver. Okay. So what is optimal receiver?
In this, the noise power won't enhance.
In this case, noise power enhancement is controlled because there is sigma m square in the denominator always. Okay, it is controlled. But you see this guy right here? It introduces some extra ISI. With a zero forcing equalizer, there is no ISI in the system. It perfectly brings it back to signal plus some filtered white noise, no ISI. Here, see, you have this culprit here. This is the guy. Not only this guy, even this filtered noise also, it has still noise enhancement. There are two things. At low SNR, this dominates. At high SNR, we know that these coefficients are very small. But this filter noise has control noise enhancement, but nevertheless, the mean square error is increased. Therefore, the SNR takes a penalty. Then what is the optimum that you can get? The optimum SNR that you can get in a single carrier FDMA system or DFT pre-coded OFDMA system is the match filter bound. Right? That we also discussed in the case of OFDMA. What is a match filter bound for this system? Can you define a match filter bound for this system? The match filter bound for this system, what is a match filter bound? Well, first I'll define it, and then if you have to simulate that, I'll tell you exactly how to go about it. Is summation of h of L absolute value square L equal to 0 to m minus 1 over m divided by sigma m square, and this whole thing multiplied by sigma s square. This is the match filter bound. Okay? What is it? This is the total energy in the frequency domain channel, and that is equal to, using Parseval's theorem, sigma hk whole square k equal to 0 to some effective memory. I won't call it L, but some effective memory in the channel, 0 to v sigma a square divided by sigma n square. If you let m equal to n, then you can replace v with L, some original channel length. But here, you will only see an effective channel for the duration of m subcarriers. You can also say that this h of k, in principle, it can take values up till m minus 1, but although it may have only a few taps that are dominant, right? Rest of them are 0. Okay? You can replace this with m minus 1 to be it more general. Okay, this is the best possible SNR you can get with a Gini receiver, which may or may not exist. Okay, so what is that Gini receiver? We'll talk about just briefly. Okay, how would you get this SNR? is a match filter? A match filter is something, it conjugates the frequency domain channel response, right? At every subcarrier, you conjugate it and multiply it with y of L. So let's say this is Z bar of L, or Z of match filter subscript L. This is a match filter, H in frequency domain. In time domain, it has a different form. We'll discuss that. That is equal to H conjugate of L. Y of L is H of L, A of L plus noise N of L. Okay? And this would give us H of L absolute value square A of L plus H conjugate of L N of L. Okay? You'll have to see the time domain equivalent signal after match filtering, okay, to get a better idea of what's really going on. Okay, let's look at Z of match filtered response K is equal to H of L is H of K is DFT pair with H of L, and what is the DFT pair for H conjugate of L? H conjugate of what? Minus K, right? Conjugation frequency domain gives conjugation and time reversal. So we are going to filter Y of K with H conjugate minus K circularly convolved with an equivalent time domain signal. Y of L has Y of K. What is Y of K here? Y of K is A of K circularly convolved with H of K plus N of K. So if I put that here, H conjugate minus K circularly convolved with H of K, again convolved with A of K plus H conjugate minus K circularly convolved with N of K. A linear convolution is replaced by circular convolution everywhere. So now I will call this Q of K, this total filter, circularly convolved with A of K plus H conjugate minus K convolved with N of K. Have you seen anywhere this kind of convolution? H conjugate minus K with H of K in DSP or any other course? A match filter, have you seen anywhere?
Not match filter, but the previous MSc filter I used it in DC image course.
This kind of stuff.
Not this one, but the previous
Okay.
one.
Anyway. Okay. So original channel is A of K convolved with H of K, right? And if you convolve with again H star minus K, this response will be symmetric, two-sided, right? This is like the autocorrelation of the channel. Okay? So we can write this as sigma Hk absolute value square K equal to 0 to m minus 1 Ak plus, because this has a response, that zeroth lag H of K H conjugate minus K will have a response like this. And the next one would be, what would be the next one? H0 H1 plus H1 conjugate plus H1 H2 conjugate and so on, so forth, right? And similarly you will have something, a conjugate of it. Well, I haven't derived it fully. Right? k convolved with h star minus k. Okay? So then we'll have a lot of ISI components plus h star minus k convolved with nk. I will not write the structure of the ASI. But the point here is these ISI components are not a function of AK, but they are a function of AK plus 1, AK plus 2, and then AK minus 1, AK minus 2. Both the causal and non-causal components contribute to the ASI. Okay? Now, I have a Zini device that tells me exactly what this ASI is. So I know, as if the transmitter sends me the whole information about AK, so I can simply reconstruct, and it's a Zini device. So I'm going to cancel ISI. If you cancel the ISI, what would I get? Zk prime mf of k is equal to sigma hk square ak k equal to 0 to m minus 1 plus h star minus k convolved with nk. Certainly convolved with nk. And the SNR at the output of this device after match filter and ISI cancellation, the SNR after match filtering and ISI cancellation, you can show it to be SNR at the output of the match filter and ISI canceller is equal to sigma hk absolute value square sigma a square, this is squared because this is amplitude, right? This whole thing is squared, amplitude is whole thing squared, variance sigma a square divided by the noise power for the filtered noise. Okay, I will not go through it. The variance of this term will be, well, sum of all the gains of the channel taps multiplied by noise power. Okay, that would be sigma h square absolute value square k equal to 0 to m minus 1 into sigma n square, and this cancels it, and I get I think we rushed it a little bit, we didn't expand this, but that's a good exercise, right? You can figure out what this is, expand this, and you can figure out the components of the ASI. Okay? I leave it as an exercise for you. Okay? That should be fine. For the lack of time, we have to close this in an hour. So, we derived a match filter and a Zini aided ISI canceller device that gives you a match filter bomb. Okay? You can also implement this match filtering and ISI cancellation in frequency domain. I will not go through it. Whatever you can do in time domain, you can do it in frequency domain. Okay? So what you have to do is you multiply this with HL conjugate, and you got this right. So what you have to do is add something to this. First you subtract this out. Minus A of L divided by, well, you subtract it out, and then you need to add something that is desired, that is the desired signal. What would be the term you have to add here? Just check it out. You take it out, the entire signal, but you only have to add the term corresponding to this middle portion. Okay? That would be and what would be the term? Just you figure this out. Anyway, I'll leave it as an exercise. You can also implement this in frequency domain. You can.
Frequency domain is just multiplication, which of them into its term. So
Yeah, that is the match filter, but you have to do ISI cancellation.
You keep only equal to 0.
Well, we figure it out. Okay, I will leave it like that. You can do it in frequency domain. I mean, when you write MATLAB code, you can do it either in time domain or frequency domain. It's really up to you. Okay, I've done this before. Okay, any case, you can mimic the performance of a match filter bound receiver in simulation by applying a match filter and then removing the two-sided ISI, and you only retain the middle part. So this is what an ideal equalizer should strive to accomplish. That is, get to a form of this kind. That's what it should. I mean, it should give an SNR of this. So it should give a decision variable with signal power of this kind and some filter noise power. That's what an ideal equalizer should try to accomplish. But unfortunately, the linear equalizer will not give you anything close to this, but a bit away from this SNR, optimum SNR. And there are receivers called decision feedback equalizer. In fact, it's called MMSE DFE. So what you do is, you apply an MMSE feed-forward filter, which is a little different from this, and it reshapes the impulse response so that it is convenient for decision feedback detection. That is, you remove the ISI from the past and you start making decisions. Okay, and that receiver, under the assumption of error-free decisions, because the decision feedback mechanism has to be error-free, is an optimum receiver structure, and it achieves capacity. And it turns out that the capacity of the MMSE DFE receiver is also the same as the capacity of OFDM, which is the optimum capacity that you can ever achieve. Well, in this case, we should use the word mutual information because there is no feedback involved. So the MMSE DFE gives you the same mutual information as OFDM. However, OFDM relies on channel coding, whereas MMSE DFE, a lot of work has been done in the signal processing domain, and you bring everything into an equivalent AWGN channel, whether it is a linear equalizer or a DFE. You do a lot of signal processing, you bring it to an equivalent AWGN channel, then you apply channel coding for that operating point. Whereas in OFDM, you have a sequence of subcarriers, each with a different channel gain, and you apply a code to exploit the frequency varying channel. Whereas in MMSE DFE or linear equalizer, for all the symbols, they have equal SNR. For any AK, after equalization, SNR is the same. So you choose any code designed for AWGN channel and apply it. And you can also show that the MMSE DFE receiver gives you the full diversity or the maximum possible diversity that you can get without involving channel coding. Whereas a linear equalizer, unfortunately, doesn't give you as much diversity benefit as the decision feedback receiver. But its performance from uncoded point of view is generally better than OFDM because OFDM needs channel code. So we kind of conclude this discussion on OFDM and DFT precoded OFDM. You should be able to simulate all these things, because you have the basic framework, and you can see the trade-off through simulation. Okay. From the next lecture onwards, we will look at the use of multiple antennas at the transmit and receiver, how we can exploit them. First, we'll look at the case of multiple receive antennas and apply MMSE combining, again the same type of principle, and how to reject co-channel interference. And this co-channel interference is generated either in the same cell or outside the cell. If it is generated in the same cell, we call it spatial multiplexing, which is a form of MIMO transmission, and use an MMSE receiver to increase the data rate. If it is generated outside the base station from some other base station, it is called other cell interference rejection. So we'll start with an MMSE receiver for co-channel interference rejection. That leads up to spatial multiplexing, and then we'll discuss the capacity of MIMO channels from Teletar's paper. Okay, so we'll first start with a practical implementation for MIMO, and then we move on to the derivation of channel capacity for MIMO, and then we'll discuss some other transmitter receiver architectures for MIMO. Okay, so since we are moving on to the next set of lectures, it's best that you complete all the homeworks in a day or so. Right? If you are interested and keen, you can also simulate the DFT precoded OFDM. I wouldn't make it mandatory, but if you complete the OFDM framework, it's not too difficult to introduce a DFT precoder and an MMS equalizer. It's fairly straightforward. And you can compare DFT precoder OFDM with OFDM, with and without channel coding. Okay, that sort of completes the entire discussion. Okay, there's one more thing that we need to discuss, that is the pilot structure and the frame structure for DFT precoder OFDM as applied in the LTE standard. That we will do in a separate lecture. Okay, how exactly it is implemented in practice. Okay, we'll stop it here. So you think we can get the simulation assignments tomorrow, everybody? You're saying yes every time. Huh? You have not said no so far. You have to work at it. It's not too difficult. If you sit together and work it together, in groups, you should be able to solve them. See, the only issue is the FFTs, the way you use them, right? The scalings and all that. That you have to be careful.
Sir, will Thursday be okay? Tomorrow is exam.
What is that?
So tomorrow we have exam.
You have an exam.
So Thursday will that be okay? Day after.
Yeah, but you must submit all of them on Thursday. Okay?
Yes.
Because I've been giving so many extensions. That's kind of expected with simulation-based assignments. Yeah, please make sure Thursday, all of you, not just for everybody, submit assignment. By that time, we would have had one more lecture, and that could give you yet another assignment. Okay. But they're actually quite simple. The first assignment is probably the hard one because you need to figure out many things. But once that is done, the rest of them are very easy because you implement exactly what is taught in the class. And the next one is going to be MMS combining, and it doesn't involve OFDM, so it's much easier. Okay. All right.